Hello, owners. Welcome to another edition of Matters. We're here today to discuss a topic that's so dear to us, but never dear to our owners that we speak to. It's about technology and the computer software that you have installed in your salons.
We found so many times when we meet with salon owners that trying to get numbers that exist and data that exists in their system is almost like going on an archaeological dig.
Yes.
We can eventually get there, but we have to go through report after report after report. We have to go through sometimes talking to their software engineers and in some cases going into the salon and looking around their computer system ourselves.
So many times we have asked them for things and they'll say, our system isn't capable of doing that, or our system is quite limited, or we have asked for that and we can't get it. And the reason that we know you've given up early is because we've worked with another salon that has the same system and we've been able to get the reports that we need. We're going to reprimand you a little bit if we ask a question and you can't say yes. And the question's this: are you an expert on the software package that's in your salons? Because if you're not, you're losing money.
And that always hurts to hear as an owner. But most definitely, I think it's true. We talk frequently with salon owners about the fact that just because we're in a technology age, because we're in an information age and computers exist, doesn't mean that you know anything more about your business than you did in previous years.
Most salons use this just for a point of sale.
Yes, a glorified cash register.
Yes.
And then as an automated appointment book has come on, many times we'll use it, or it's being used, for automated appointment book. But for the power that each of those systems has isn't. We find that there are buildings full of computer printouts and reports that no one looks at, that
no one knows how to
does
interpret.
any kind of interpretation.
Right.
We say to hairdressers and we say to salon owners all the time that numbers exist to influence behavior. And they can only influence behavior if people are looking at them, and they're only looked at if they have value. And so if you're printing off day-end reports and cash drawer reports and things of that nature that your front desk staff is doing and it has no value to you, you certainly aren't going to influence your behavior by it, and it's probably not serving the salon.
You need to become an expert at your software program. The manuals that you have, every page of that shouldn't be foreign. Also, your manuals should have coffee stains on them. They should have, what do you call that, bunny-eared corners on the pages because you're referring to it so often.
Well, and Terry, but in all fairness, some manuals are online. Some of the systems that salons use frequently, they've got a manual that's in their computer.
Well, they could still
it's not printed
that.
out. It's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of pages.
Thousands of pages.
In some cases, yeah.
Okay. Let's go back and start
Chicago
off.
Foam Directory.
Let's start off with some of the things that we've seen that they can start off making simple changes that will create big results for them because it'll tell them more of a story on their business. We were working with a salon that had a system, and we asked them, tell us all the different customer classes that are in your salon. And most people don't personalize their software package to their business. They just live with the system that the software puts in place. The software system is always going to have a default on every screen setup. There'll be a default that they recommend. But 9 times out of 10, they can be edited and personalized to your business.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's safe to say that any computer program will have system setups that must be done.
Yes.
There are system setups relative to how you collect customer data. There are system setups to how you collect your data on your employees, your stylist data, that are clear all the way through, usually from everything from hours worked to services that person is capable of doing, to scheduling time for each of the services for each stylist, to pricing for each stylist, for each service, compensation for each stylist or each service provider in the business. There are certain setups that must be done in the beginning.
And maintained, updated, looked at regularly, And that's in often cases that's not being done.
That's true.
And what happens is we go back to just what we're comfortable with, which is the basics. And if only the basics are being done, the system is not going to communicate with you as an owner. Also, if you've given this responsibility, you might say, you know what, they're not talking to me because I have a great manager or I have a great front desk person that's my right hand. And what I've done is I've entrusted her with all this information, and she knows the computer like the back of her hand, and I don't want to learn it. I'm not interested in it, so I just trust her with all the information. And what we're going to say to you is you're very vulnerable as an owner right now, because when you don't know, it's going to create problems for you at some point. Maybe not now, but down the road, because when you don't know things about your business and you've given that power or authority to someone else, they're never going to think or respond as an owner would.
Well, and they'll respond in the best way that they know how.
Right.
Given warm and friendly circumstances. But we all know that there's times, and we know that we have many managers that listen to this information as well. So please don't take this as we're speaking or thinking badly about managers. Salon managers, in many cases, are so necessary just strictly because you've got an owner that's working behind the chair. So you must be an extension of that owner. But I think you would agree with us that if you get the proper information, it makes your conversation with your owner and yours with your manager more meaningful. We say all the times that we want to have meaningful conversations about facts. And we gather facts by putting in the right information. One thing that's always been true about computers, from day one, the first time I ever laid eyes on a computer, someone said computers are all about GIGO, and it's G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out. If we're putting garbage into that computer, we're going to get garbage out of that computer. It's only as good as the data we put in, how clean it is and how clear it is. There's many times that a computer system will collect data about a guest. Just to give you some examples. When the guest calls in, there's a box that needs to be checked on whether it's a repeat guest, whether it's a request, whether it's a new guest, a salon guest. And the time you have to check that is before you schedule the appointment. If that's not checked, you're not getting good data. And it'll be bad data forever if we're not making sure that the front desk is following through in an appropriate manner and not just getting past a screen.
Let's talk about why. I was in a salon just recently where I asked them, I was speaking to about 8 of their staff, and I said, would you print some productivity reports? I'd like to see it specifically not on volume dollars, but I want to see it on traffic. Give me a traffic analysis per employee. What they brought over was just a total guest count during a time period of 1 month for every one of them. And I said, okay, I'd like to know how many were established guests and how many were new guests for these service providers. The owner said, oh, our system doesn't do that. And I questioned it, and I said, well, during the break of when I'm speaking, may I go over and look at your system? Because for an owner, you could be feeding traffic over and over and over again to people that aren't retaining customers. Therefore, you're not building your business. Sure enough, we went over during the break. We sat down. I looked at the customer types, and it could be personalized, but no one knew how to do it. I said, where's the manual? No one could find it. It's here somewhere. And that's my point exactly. If the system is to talk to you and communicate with your business, why is it not always available to us to work off of, to think about, to communicate with? It's just not a priority.
Well, and a word about systems in general. First of all, we have yet to see a perfect salon computer system. That doesn't exist. There is no one system that's made that would be perfect in any salon that would choose to buy it and use it. They all have their uniquenesses. They all have their things that they can and can't do. Almost all of them can be adapted and are usable and will provide valuable information for the managers, owners, and stylists in that salon. Almost all. There are very few totally worthless systems out there.
Well, and when we go back, and going back to customer type, there's sometimes 10 or 15 customer types, and there doesn't need to be that many. We believe in 4. We believe in an established customer. We believe in a new request because it's a referral. We believe in a salon client. And then we believe in a new salon client. Those are the only 4 we recommend. Really, what else do you need at that point? We're talking about established customers, and then we're talking about new customers. And the new customer is new to the salon, or it's just a salon client. And those 4 types will tell you a lot about your business. So go back and look at what you've got in there for customer types right now. Now, here's a caution to all of you. If 70% of your traffic is established customers, 9 times out of 10, the front desk, if they're not trained to put in numbers so it influences behavior of the business, they'll automatically just start putting in that default. Let's say established customers is keystroke 1. They'll start putting that for every single guest, even new ones, because they're so used to that being the default keystroke for them. Mm-hmm. And therefore, now you look like and think you're having all these established customers in your salon when really you had a mixture of customers and now you don't even know that.
And of course, this is so important because really there's a couple of things that happen in business. First of all, the purpose of the business is to create a salon experience, but moreover, to create a repeat guest. If we are not measuring our traffic, meaning the people who walk through the door, step 1 is who walks through the door and where'd they come from? Are we doing established guests, new guests? Are they coming in by request to a certain stylist, or are they overall new salon guests? That's what you said with your 4 client types. It's important to know that. What kind of volume traffic is the salon or an individual stylist doing? Those are their opportunities. If someone walks in the door, it's an opportunity to create a repeat guest and to create a salon experience for them. The numbers side of the business follows that, but traffic is where it begins. How many came in? Because that will establish our opportunity in the business. And if we've got a business where we have all established guests, we're not having any new traffic come into that salon, that's a challenge of a different type.
That means the prices are too low.
It could mean there's no room. It could mean that everyone is fully scheduled and there's no room to take a new guest. But what will happen is if you're doing all established guests, eventually you're going to have openings because every clientele has attrition. Every clientele will turn over either by moving, the transient nature now of the business. You will find yourself needing to attract new guests. So we have to have a new flow of business coming in. But in order to have that, we have to be able to measure it to know how many of those new guests are actually coming back.
Well, while I was in the salon, and I asked these questions of the owner, and I said, is everyone busy? Oh, no, not everyone's busy. I said, okay, well, how do you know that? Well, I just know it. And I said, well, because your customer classes aren't properly put into the system, you can't tell who you're trying to feed, where you're putting your new customers. If they're keeping guests, you can't see any of that. So one of the things that Steve and I look at very closely is how much time does it take to build a new hairdresser, or even any technician for that matter, and how many guests are you putting into the chair, and how long it takes for them to retain them, and is that growing? For example, one of the things that we endorse is to pay a 10% difference in compensation for an established customer versus one that you have to put in the chair as a salon owner. So often the front desk is just looking for that available time, and they throw them into that time appointment. What's difficult is the only goal the front desk has at times is to get the appointment scheduled. Not get it with the right person. Is it someone that we're trying to grow? Is it someone that can keep customers? Are we still trying to fill up people that should be full already? They're just trying to get the appointment in. And if we were looking at numbers and analyzing traffic more regularly, we would realize, hey, Mary's been here 18 months. We shouldn't be feeding her any longer. There's something definitely wrong. So numbers would influence our behavior as a leader.
Absolutely. I had a conversation with 2 salon owners yesterday, and one of the things that we were talking about was the technical expertise of their staff. and the awards that they've won, and really it's always been a very well respected salon technically. And we were talking about pricing, and the conversation went to, if everyone is that technically superb, is everyone equally busy? Meaning, do they have the same customer counts? And of course, the answer to that, I know, as we go through and research this, is going to be absolutely not. They're not the same, because there's more to this business than the technical side. Traffic doesn't know Mrs. Jones by name. If you look at a day in an individual stylist's book, you're not going to see that 9 o'clock was Mrs. Jones, and 10 o'clock was so-and-so, and 11 o'clock was so-and-so, and 12 o'clock. You're going to see that in that day, 10 guests were seen. 8 were established, 1 was a new request, and 1 was a new salon guest. Without the emotion of the personality added to it, as an owner and manager, especially with new help, with new stylists, people who have just come through the training program, you're going to want to review what went on with that new guest that came in, as well as what went on with the new request. You're going to want to step through their salon experience. Those are conversations that are possible because we measure it. And that's where the value of not having, oh, that was just Mrs. Jones, to know, today I saw 10 guests, tomorrow I see 8, the next day I see 12, the next day I see 7, the next day I see 10. All of that makes up a week. And if I look at week over week, one week I'm seeing 41 guests, the next week I'm seeing 35, the next week I'm seeing 45. You will get to a norm, you'll get to something that you can measure that has a consistent look to it, so you'll be able to know. We say all the time that people need 2 things. They need appreciation and discipline. And to have numbers that then allow you to benchmark things, it enables you to have your people have appreciation and discipline. Discipline when they didn't hit a number, appreciation when they did. And that's why we look at numbers in a certain way. We can only look at them when the right information goes in. The only way the right information goes in is to know the capabilities of your computer system and have your customer setups done properly. One of the things that's important, it's something that hairdressers are so good at when it comes to the detail of a haircut, so good when it comes to the detail of hair color, so good when it comes to the detail of a training program, but we've yet to get really, really good at the detail of a computer system to see, if I set up my customer classes like this, this is how it influences the reports that I see. You almost need to test it and be able to say, here's the way I'm setting up my customer classes. Then I'm going to take 4 customers on a day that the salon isn't open. And for those of you that are open 7 days a week, this is a challenge. But I'm actually going to schedule 1 stylist with a full day of customers, checking these things off, ringing them up as if it was there, and seeing how the information flows through on the daily sales reports that I want to look at.
Well, it's amazing to me as we're sitting at the table and we'll say to someone we're consulting with, what are the main reports you look at? And they look like a deer in headlights. They don't know the main reports to look at. And they'll start printing everything. Mm-hmm. Print this, print that, print this, print that. Hopefully, they'll then be able to give us the information we want. Them doing that, not knowing the reports like the back of their hand and being able to say, you're looking for the ABC report, tells us that they're not managing off of numbers. They're managing with emotion. And I can tell you, from experience, even as owners, when you manage off of emotion, that's all that's present in your business. And when you manage off of numbers, it removes the emotion from it. And so you can't afford not to be using your system to the fullest.
Well, and from a very practical sense, you paid for it.
Right.
It's an asset of your company. Part of what you need to do is find out how to get the best return on the assets of your company.
Now, before we go into talking about the pricing and how they should set up pricing of their services, let's talk about the relationship with the vendor, their software vendor.
Okay, by now, some of you have probably taken your Walkman, or maybe you're running this CD on your computer right now, and you've started to play around in your system software at your salon. And undoubtedly, you will hit some screens, you'll hit some situations and say, I don't see it. My system won't do that. I don't know how to make it do that. I don't know how to set up these customer classes. And somewhere along the way, you will decide either to call your vendor, your software provider, or you'll have your manager or managers, you will call the software provider to say, how do I do this? What I'd like to talk to you about now is how important is that vendor, and how important is your relationship with.
And if you haven't made a choice or thinking about making another choice.
Exactly. And that happens all the time. People all the time have one computer system and think that going to the next computer system is going to be the answer. There's many people right now that are in their salon's second or third generations of computers since they first automated. And all that's fine. What you want to have is...
But you know what? I don't mean to interrupt, but how many times have we said you don't need to spend that money? You just need to be using this system to its fullest capability.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not using this one, chances are the next one you buy, you're not going to use that one to the fullest either.
Well, and someone told me early on when PSC was looking for our computer systems, they said the people who are most successful with an automated system are the people who have a good paper system first. So if your intent was to have a computer so that you'd have a system in the salon, it's kind of backwards. You've got to have your system first, and then you'll have, if you have a good paper system, you'll have a good computer system in a lot of cases, if it's credible software. So you need to ask a lot of questions when you're meeting with the salesperson. You need to know what kind of training, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's over the phone. You need to know who the training people are and how many of them there are. How many support people do they have for how many installations? In other words, if you've got one support person and they're supporting 1,000 salons, that's probably not enough. And even if they could handle all 1,000 salons, that one support system is going to take a couple weeks of vacation a year, and you can't have your system be down for that 2-week vacation time. So you've got to make sure that there's a company behind that software and that company has an interest. I would also want to know how many installations they have and how many installations they have that are up and functional, meaning they're actually using them. There are a lot of people who buy software and never install it. There are salons that own salon software and aren't using it. And if that's the case, to me, that's a sign of poor support from a vendor.
Well, you know what's weird is we've had a salon I'm thinking of is they purchase a software. It has sat unused for 2 years, and by the time they get ready to install it, the salon software system is already matured to another generation, so they're behind already.
The bottom line to think about, and this is true of hardware and it's true of software, is that from the day you buy it, the clock is ticking. All software becomes obsolete. All hardware becomes obsolete. If you have a computer that you don't use for 2 years, it's almost obsolete already because technology has moved on. If you have software that you haven't used for a couple of years, as you said, Terry, there's a new generation of it, and they're probably not supporting any longer the old generation of it.
Right.
So don't invest in software that you're not going to use. Now, I know the majority of people hearing this CD are using, in one way, shape, or form, the software that they own.
Well, how about the times that we've sat with people and they say, now, I have a cousin who's an expert, and they're going to come down and tell us what to do.
Mm-hmm. Or a client. Everybody's got a guest that's really smart on computers, and they come in and they start tinkering with their system. And again, it's at risk. You are at risk if you're not an expert in your system.
Right.
You don't need to understand how computers are built or how they're made or what the motherboard is, but you need to know how to put in a new item, a new service item. You need to know how to put in an inventory item. You need to know how to put in a new guest and a new stylist and set up a new stylist's compensation. You need to know what you need to know to be able to run your business on the particular software that you have. And that's what's critical. And in some cases, you need to know who is the contact who can support you when you need that support from your vendor. And what kind of turnaround time do they have? And what kind of a track record do they have? Which is why I would always ask for a client list.
But in all fairness, they'll give them the customers that think that they're wonderful. They never give them the customers that can't stand them.
But you see, even with the customers that they will give you, if you ask the right questions, you can get there.
Well, it's usually they service the ones that are closest to them, meaning demographically.
Yeah, sure. But you need to ask those questions based on how far away you are.
Yes, what can we expect if we're 300 miles from your corporate office?
And do they have anyone else who is 300 miles that you can use as your comparative?
Mm-hmm.
Someone with a salon your size, with the number of stylists that's approximately as far away as you are, and that's the one that's of interest to you, not anybody else that may be on their list.
The other thing that we've had happen to us when we've been asking questions about the software is we ask, is your software system capable of doing this? Oh, they said in the next version it will be able to.
Mm-hmm.
Overpromise.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of what's referred to as vaporware,
Mm-hmm.
which is overpromise. It's things that it's going to be able to do, and it just somehow never seems to.
Get there.
So what you want to do is you want to see the reports. That's one of the things that we ask for all the time, is show me a sample of all the reports that your system does, and we'll show you where we can get the numbers that we think you need to manage your business on a daily basis from.
Mm-hmm.
Because many times it doesn't come all from one report. We have to take one number off of one report, another off of another, or we might have one report or printout that gives us 3 pieces of information, but we need to get 2 or 3 pieces of information from another report. It'd be nice. In a perfect world, if we could get it all off of one report, that'd be great, but it just doesn't happen. So how you are supported matters a lot when it comes to computers. That you are supported matters. That you feel like you've got a person or persons at the software company that you can talk to who will take your calls or return your calls in a reasonable amount of time also matters. So these are all things, as you're searching out a computer company, are critical to find out. If you're not having fun when you're trying to buy the software, don't buy it. That's the bottom line. If it's too hard to buy the software, don't buy it, because the service afterwards is going to be that much worse.
That's fair. Now, let's talk about things that you have to maintain, like your customer base. It gets sloppy. If Jane Doe calls in, and the next time she calls is Jane Mary Doe, or sometimes she calls in as J, the letter J Doe, she could be entered 3 times in your software system.
We see that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
And it's not that she calls in differently, it's how a lot of times our staff enters it. Sometimes, again, you gave 3 great examples of how one name as simple as Jane Doe could be put in. Imagine some of the really interesting names that wind up on all of our customer lists and how differently those can be spelled. It also, if you're in a system that tracks new guests, if you had Jane Doe in your system and now she's coming in again, but we're entering her again into the system as J period Doe, we've now have a new guest that really isn't a new guest.
Mm-hmm.
They're an established guest. And so it throws the way we're looking at our business off. It's that if we put garbage in, we're going to get garbage back out of the system.
One of the things that we've got salons doing that maybe are having trouble in this area because of high turnover at the front desk is verifying the customer's phone number.
Okay.
So maybe you've got it entered 2 or 3 times, the same phone number. Because when is there time to really clean up and maintenance these customers if the salon's open 60, 70 hours a week?
Some of the better computer programs do that automatically. They have a program that seeks out
Duplicates.
It seeks out duplicates and corrects that. It cleans up the database on its own. Most do not, though. That's the asterisk. Most do not. So what would happen in that case is that it's luck of the draw when somebody calls in for an appointment. You might be pulling up all 3 of those and using all 3 of those customers throughout the year, even though it's really only one person.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right, Terry, how somebody has the time to maintenance that It's an ongoing.
And be an active owner behind the chair and try to run the business and do payroll and all the other administrative duties. This will never have someone's attention.
But yet it has to, or you're not getting the right information. It's an ongoing commitment. The thing that I guess I would want to share with all of you owners and managers out there is that this isn't a task that you're ever done with. You are never done with working with and maintaining your technology. It's not something that you can go in on a weekend and put in 2 full days and finish. It's not like redoing your dispensary or putting in a color bar where the project has a start and a finish. There will be more intense times where you'll have to spend more time with this project, but the project doesn't have a start and finish. Just doesn't.
Okay, let's go into setting up pricing and how many different services. We need to keep this simple, and some salons make it way too complicated.
Well, here's the biggest thing about that, Terry, is that pricing is tied to services and the way we name services. I'll give you an example. If we take a woman's haircut and style, some salons will have woman's haircut and style, woman's haircut only.
Woman's haircut with tools.
They'll have woman teen haircut. We'll have children's haircut.
Children's 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15.
And all of that could apply to a woman's haircut.
So 8 or 9 classes right there, or service types.
Really need to look at your service types and first of all know what your system will allow, and then think about what you're using. For example, I just recently looked at a salon's printouts that has, oh my God, I couldn't even tell you. Probably just in the haircut and styling services, they probably have 30 different services. But individual designers on their staff probably only use 9 of any of the services. And so you don't have even a consistent template to look at. The looser that system is, meaning the more different service types you have, the more room for interpretation and the more room for discounting that exists in your business.
Now,
price overrides.
If we owned a salon, we'd have that function locked.
It wouldn't be possible for a price override.
No, it would not.
And for those of you that are thinking about this, I see a lot of your menus that say, for example, woman's haircut, $45 and up. I can promise you, in most cases, the and up is never used, except by you as an owner or maybe one other stylist on your staff. The price you print, the price you say, the price that's the core is your highest price. They will negotiate down from that. You'll have somebody come in and they'll say, oh, I've been doing Mrs. So-and-so since I was in beauty school. I've been doing her for a long time. I'm only going to charge her this price.
Well, we just sat with an owner, and you said your staff is discounting a lot. In fact, owner, you're discounting as well. Oh,
Yes.
I know. I tend to do that. And you said you do it a lot. In fact, your staff is doing it a lot. Where would your business be if everyone was charging the prices that were in print?
And we did some examples, and the difference was staggering.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely staggering. So I would maybe even have front desk track price overrides. Track it outside the system even for a week, just for you. So managers, a nice task would be put together a simple chart and just have them do a stickman chart for every time there's a price override in your system. Meaning, a haircut price is $50 and it went out of here for $30, or it went out of here for $45, where the person ringing at point of sale had to override the price in the system.
Now, when we talked about keeping it simple, we do not believe that if a guest chooses to leave the salon with wet hair, that there should be a discount offered. They're choosing to leave. We want to style. The style is included in the service, but yet we negotiate off of that. If we're negotiating and discounting a lot, that means your staff doesn't feel that they warrant the prices that are in place.
It could also mean that they've learned that if they do discount the price, it could net them an increase in gratuity, which changes around the whole pricing structure of the business. And again, if it's not measured, if we're not looking at it, if we're not involved, all of this could be happening or none of it could be happening. We just don't know. As Terry, as you taught me early on in business, when you can't answer a question, it means you're losing money.
That's right.
And so we say that salons that learn to measure the dollars they're not currently doing and then put together a plan to bring those dollars into the salon or keep those dollars in the salon, they're going to be the ones that win.
We endorse a la carte pricing.
Yes, we do.
Every way we look at it. It's the easiest to monitor. It's the easiest to look at your dollar per guest service average and say, that makes sense. When the haircut is included in the color service or a haircut is included in a chemical straightening or curl formation service, that's going to alter your dollar per guest and not give you a true picture. So we do believe in an a la carte. Can you talk about the other, what we see in color and how many different services are just listed in color too?
Yes. Again, there we would say keep your pricing simple, but again, very pointed with what your service offering is. As you mentioned, Terry, we wanted a la carte. So in many cases, we see one price for a new all-over color, an additional price for a retouch. Some of you are doing an all-over color with a color overlay. The way I would think about that is the overlay is an add-on service. So we've got our all-over color and then an add-on service of a color overlay. Then when it comes to highlight, you've got one price for an all-over highlighting. You've got another price for partial, but define partial highlighting very specifically, perhaps with a number of foils. In addition to that, you have demi-permanent color, which generally we would consider that all over. So we wouldn't have a different price for demi-permanent. It would be the same as permanent hair color. But again, each one is unique. We tackle each one of those with salons on a unique basis, salon by salon, to see. But again, it's a la carte pricing. We also know that there is a need for an upcharge for additional colors that are used, either because of long hair, heavy hair, or multiple colors within the same color service. So every time we're mixing an additional color formula, there's an upcharge for that. The guest pays for the parts. It's really just that simple. But know in advance that for every color bowl we add, we're adding a $10 charge. So it would be a highlight plus an additional color or plus 2 additional colors, and that would do this to the price.
And then the haircut and the style.
Haircut on top of it.
And see, that scares everyone. They go, oh, I don't want to do that. Then, I think this is a great story, and I don't think Nicole will mind us talking about it. When she started to really understand pricing is when she went to the groomer. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And she said, I took my dog to the groomer, and it was $35 for the dog to have a bath, wasn't it? And basic grooming. And she said, what is our problem in the salon industry about pricing? It was just so cute the way she said it.
It was really cute. But it was a great realization.
Oh my gosh,
and
it was wonderful.
A precursor to our conversation with her at that point because we really wanted to influence her pricing.
Sure.
Why this topic is critically important is that we've already analyzed that it's important to track our opportunities by looking at the number of guests that come in and what categories those guests fall into. The other piece of this is what services they enjoy, and is our pricing correct? Because the number of guests enjoying X number of services at X price is our total business. And the example that I'd use on that is if all of a sudden we had gallons of Freeze and Shine in our system for $1, which we don't, by the way, it wouldn't matter how many of you bought those gallons of Freeze and Shine, we would be losing money selling them at $1. And so it wouldn't be made up in volume. It wouldn't be made up over a long period of time. It's the wrong price. The wrong price nets the wrong result. And we see that happen in a lot of salons. We see the negotiation over, in the owner's eyes, it's a full head of highlights. And in the stylist's eyes or designer's eyes, it's a partial highlight. And again, those are systemic. You have to make the decisions. You have to put the services in properly in your service setups, and you have to have the pricing proper. Many of you also know that we encourage a tiered pricing structure in the salon based on earned levels of accomplishment for the staff. That's tied to their traffic, that's tied to their ability to service the guest and create a repeat guest, which we track. It's tied to a lot of things we talked about in advance. What is their service commitment? What's their total dollar per guest, their service dollar per guest, and their take-home dollar per guest? What's their service per guest ratio, and what's their guest per man-hour ratio? All of those things are tracked through a computer system based on proper setups. But then, of course, we encourage taking that off of a computerized report and being put into a manual system by each designer that's then turned into the manager that we use to manage off of.
Okay, let's discuss the audit side of this. I want to reflect back to the restaurant industry. The audit was very simple. I go back, I yell out, I need 2 fillets, 2 lobster tails, 2 baked potatoes. At the end of the night, I should be less 2 fillets, 2 lobster tails to my inventory. When it's an intangible service, for example, there's nothing that has to transpire to get a haircut. How do we know that more wasn't done and base services are being charged? How are we going to do that?
What we suggest really is individual. The first audit is missing ticket numbers if you have a system that has tickets.
Well, and you should do one. We endorse
A
it.
ticket is issued, a numbered ticket is issued with every single guest that comes into the salon. And we check the number of guests, the number of tickets issued with the number of tickets that were cashed out.
And then the ticket next to the appointment that was scheduled.
Yes. That's one of the best ways. There's other ways when you're suspecting theft or things of that nature, but I don't think it fits in this particular CD.
And once again, if you can stop and block the override of pricing, we would encourage you to do so.
I think we said this in one of the previous CDs, but the average salon owner would not believe the amount of discounting that's done in your salon under your roof and on your watch. If we could just get you to charge full price for the services that are currently being done in your salon, it would have such a significant impact on your revenue and your profits.
It would absolutely be dramatic.
So this helps us to get there. Where you've got a lot of pricing overrides, there probably is not a great system in place for your service types and your pricing.
Well, one of the things that we teach from the platform all the time, which creates a stir among the attendees, is unapproved discounting is equivalent to theft. And any way you look at it, I know we've said that on previous CDs also, but listen to what we're saying. That business pricing was put in place so the business would be profitable. So for it to be discounting each time is saying it's okay for the business not to be profitable. And that's a responsibility we have to our staff as owners. Oh, boy.
And again, you can only manage what you know. And if you're not looking at real pricing, the number of times that we look at an individual stylist's numbers and their service portion of their ticket per guest is less than the price of their base price of a woman's haircut and style, it's amazing. And the owners themselves can't believe it until you start digging deeper and finding the amount of discounting that's done and price overrides.
Well, for example, we'll say to the owner, do you do a lot of chemical? Oh my gosh, we do so much chemical. So how can the average service price of your ticket in your salon be the haircut price only? Then that means they're discounting. Or they're letting people walk out with wet hair and discounting and justifying.
Yes.
That's really bad news.
One of the things that's a system setup that's not done very often, and when a salon does it, it's absolutely wonderful. And that's actually put the schedules in for your staff. Put the hours that they are assigned to work. Put that in the system so that at the end of a week when you do a weekly report, in most weekly reports, it's going to show that this stylist worked 32 hours, that this stylist worked 40 hours or 45 hours.
And sometimes the system will say, and of those 32 hours, how much of the time were they full?
I just looked at one yesterday that did that.
It's nice.
And if it's consistent and if it's entered properly, it's a nice stat to look at. But again, if it's not maintenanced right, and in this particular system that I looked at, they give you the net effect of what percentage of the time is the person
busy ratio is
booked.
what
Their
they call
busy
it.
ratio.
Yep.
But they don't tell you the total number of hours that they worked on a report, which is kind of silly.
That's right.
because you've got no way to rely on their number in that case because you don't know what it was considering.
Right.
It could have been that their schedule was entered improperly.
Anything you want to talk about on inventory items?
Well, the main thing that I'd like to talk about on inventory is that if you have an inventory system on your computer that does automatic ordering and it's based on minimums and maximums that you set up, that you are responsible for setting up, you're probably not going to be managing your inventory properly. Because minimums and maximums, unless you are updating that very frequently, mins and maxes are set up based on how many you think look good on the shelf, not how many sell. It has nothing to do with how many turns that you want to get on your inventory. It's just a number. That shelf should have 6 bottles of Freeze and Shine, and if it has 4, my system's going to order 2. Not how many did we sell, so how many should we have, and we'll order the proper amount. So we still suggest a system outside of. In other words, run your inventory sheet, but manage your inventory outside of the system unless you've got a really strong inventory control system inside your computer system.
And how would they know if they did or didn't?
If it calculates orders based on movement rather than minimums and maximum.
Okay.
The other thing to consider in your computer system is how will you account for products that are taken off the retail shelf and used in the salon.
Mm-hmm. And what we recommend is setting up a usage customer.
Yes, setting up a usage customer for
the salon usage.
Each stylist.
Per stylist or salon usage, whatever deems best for your business.
Mm-hmm. And that'll at least allow you to track it. Otherwise, if you've got an item that you use a lot of in the salon and maybe aren't selling a lot of, I'd want to know that. I'd want to know that we use product XYZ 12 bottles a week, but we're only selling 2 bottles a week. That would be a staff meeting. How could we use it and love it, but we're not
passing that on
to our customers?
Well, good. I think we've given them a lot to think about.
I hope so. This is a big topic. It's not maybe the warm and fuzzy topic that we've dealt with a lot of times with our owner CDs.
It's also not a topic that you can say, oh, I can move on that one right now and implement some changes tomorrow.
Exactly. But think about the fact that if you are not expert in your software, then you're probably losing money, and you're probably at some point in time or another going to be held captive.
In our company, we've got 2 major software programs that we use.
Mm-hmm.
You are the master of the one, and I'm the master of the other. But we also both are versed on each other's as well. And we have a lot of staff that have become experts in these certain things. But when we have a question about the business and what the system can do or cannot do, we seek answers because we have to know. The I don't knows in our business drive us crazy.
That's really true. And that's something to measure. Just had a conversation with one of our space managers last night about that. I said, I am not comfortable with you being comfortable saying, I don't know. I don't know is not a good business response. In any way, shape, or form. It's not a good response from you as a leader to your staff. It's not a good response from your staff to your guest that comes in. It's not a good response from you to a vendor.
We encourage them to say, I'll research that and get back to you.
Absolutely. And if you're saying, I don't know to the same thing over and over again, we probably should know.
Yeah, shame on us. And because you have turnover at the front desk, you're probably having more I don't knows than you realize. The big thing to remember is, and we teach this also, this front desk staff are not secretaries to the hairdressers, but administrative assistants to you in the business. That's why it's critical that they be computer literate. That's why it's critical that they understand the ins and outs of your software system. It's not okay just to fly around and do the basics. It's not okay.
And again, as you walk through your business, listen to the sound of it. Listen to the number of times that people are saying either no or I don't know. And we joke around and say that in most business, if you go to a retailer, whether it be a Walmart or a Target or Marshall Fields or a store like that, people say no like there's a reward for it. They also say I don't know like there's a reward for it. People will say I don't know to get them off the hook and out of the conversation. And if you've got a guest that wants to spend money in your business,
Help them.
help them. And I know that's obvious to all of us as owners, but it's not always obvious to our guest that's in our business. And so that's really the work that we have to do. And measuring better, having computer systems that give us great factual information so that we can change behavior based on the numbers that we see, and so that we can grow and coach people in our business.
I can remember when we were at a vulnerable state in our company, when we had put a software personalized program into our business and had someone else managing it. And actually it was someone that was a direct report of mine. And she decided to leave our employee, which was fine. And instead of just replacing her and having her train someone else, Steve and I made the decision that I would remove myself from other duties and do her job function for a while. And I had to become an expert. We chose for me to become the expert in this system. And sitting there as a principal and thinking through, as only a principal at times can think, we were able to make this system sing and dance like it would have never had not one of us done that function. And rolling up my sleeves, I'll never forget that day, taking a seat and saying, okay, I'm going to win this battle. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to figure this out. And I think I was down there for a good 6 to 8 months. But it was a marvelous opportunity for me, and it was marvelous to see how much me not doing that had cost us. And I was such a joy to do business with then, wasn't
You
I?
were a joy, absolutely.
Yeah, I was a tyrant.
The thought that I'd like to close with is that I believe that when there's something that we're supposed to do in our business, it presents itself.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. Maybe this is the second or third time this week or this month that you've been face-to-face with the thought or the challenge of getting to know your computer system or having to become expert in your computer system. Maybe this is the first nudge of one that will happen 2 or 3 times within the next week or month. But this is a key. This is of critical importance. Please don't think, if you're not getting what you need from that computer, don't think the answer is to go out and spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a new system. It may be. Certainly resource us if you'd like, and we'll help where we can with advice on that. But chances are you've got a credible system that's workable. We just need to become more expert in it.
There's 2 expressions that we like. Stress means change something, or it can mean change is trying to take place and you won't let it. Sometimes we can get so comfortable in our business we get stupid, and we have to be careful. And this system, this computer system, needs your attention desperately. Tackle that as you would a new haircut, and great things are going to happen. Thank you for your time.
Have a great month. Okay. One major afterthought. In fact, you might have even tried to crawl into your CD player or your computer to find Terry and I to strangle one or both of us
Just
during
you.
this CD. Probably me, yeah. You might be wondering, what software systems do we not endorse, because
Since
we
we
don't
don't have
endorse any,
one.
but what software system do we like or do we find credible? The one that we recommend most often, and we don't usually recommend one, we'll give people the 3 that we like, and here they are. The first one is the Millennium software, which is put out by Harms Software Company. And they have their big package for larger salons, and they have a smaller package for smaller salons.
Called Millennium Light.
Called Millennium Light. Another package that we like is the Salon Transcripts. Salon Transcripts, their best software is available only in the Apple environment, the Macintosh environment. So they do make an IBM or a PC-based software, but it's not as current. Most of their users are Apple users. So again, you might be PC-based in your business already and want to use your PC computers. That's fine. I would not consider Salon Transcripts in that way, only if you have an Apple interest. The third one is a product called HairMax. And HairMax is a very reasonably priced good, solid salon software system.
User-friendly.
User-friendly. The gentleman that wrote the package does a lot of the support himself. His name is Steve Sampson, and it's an excellent program. So all three of those. The most bells and whistles you're going to find are on the Millennium package, no doubt. And it'll also be the highest price that you'll find out there. So those are our three software packages. Hope you enjoy them.
Well, and my afterthought is from Apollo 13.
Yes.
And when they're trying to figure out what they're going to do to get the boys down.
Love that scene.
And when he looks at his team and he says, look, let's get the facts right, people. Let's not make things worse by guessing.
Mm-hmm.
That fits so beautifully in this. If we want to get people to $100,000 productivity behind the chair, or we want to build people.
Or much greater.
Please
don't think
we've
there's a
witnessed
limit.
it. We can't do it by guessing. We've got to have the facts, and they have to be accurate.
And I'd like to share a little quote that I am particularly fond of. And I'll try and say it slow enough so that my wife is pleased with me when I finish. I carried it around for years in my pocket. On one side was a picture of a thinking man in the thinking man position, but it was a skeleton because he was sitting there thinking and of course passed away and was nothing left but the skeleton. On the other side was a phrase that said, "On the plains of hesitation bleached the bones of countless millions who at the dawn of victory sat down to wait and waiting died." And what that's always meant to me is that so many times in business, we know the things that we should be doing. We know the things that we could do, but we hesitate before we move forward. It takes us much too long to actually get into action. Sometimes that hesitation to get into action allows opportunities to pass us by completely. And so the message that I get from that is that if we knew the very next move we made in business was the move that would make our life easier financially, that we would turn the corner, that we would get to the next level of business, we would absolutely make that move today. So it's not can we, but will we?
And when will we?
And when will we? Are we just talking about it, or are we going to do it?
All right, just do it.
Have a great month.
Bye.
Bye.